All right, welcome to JB Squared. I'm JB Hager, more importantly, joined by Johan Bruneel, and we're going to take a look at stage 7 of this year's Tour de France and a look ahead of what we might expect for tomorrow. And Johan's always really great about looking ahead and tactics, what people are doing right or wrong, maybe should do, should not do. That's what makes this show so unique. So we'll get into that in just a second, but first, I want to tell you about a couple of our partners. Today's show is brought to you by Ventum. The all-new GS1 is hard to believe. It starts with SRAM Apex AXS for just $29.99. Just under $3,000, you could be on a brand new GS1. I know a lot of people are like me. You've been hearing more and more and more about gravel bikes. You've probably been a roadie your whole life, or maybe a mountain biker, but this whole trend of gravel, it was compelling to me. I was like, I want to check that out. So I've been riding the GS1 for a few months now and absolutely love it. The folks at Ventum could not have been any more helpful. As I was going on their site and specking it out, I was a little curious about sizing and stem length and all that stuff. And I did a chat with them, and I would just send them my all my measurements for my last road bike fit. And they go, okay, you need this size, this size, this size, and this size. It was super, super easy. They could not have been more helpful. And you know what else is really cool? I think they just started doing it with the new GS1. The bike showed up at my door in like a double wide box, completely built. I just needed to put the wheels on, but the seat was the only thing I needed to really do mechanically. I was like, wow, I can't believe they can ship a bike like that. Really great experience. So if you've been thinking about getting a new road bike, check out the NS1 and then the GS1, and then you can spec them out however you want. Your components, your wheel upgrades, different types of handlebars, different crank length, you name it. So go check it out at ventumracing.com, the move, and you can take advantage of 10% off when you use the code WEDO at checkout at ventumracing.com/the move. Today's show also brought to you by HVMN. I've been taking Ketones IQ for several months now and have really noticed a difference. For me, it's more so in the mental side of what Ketones IQ can do for you. I feel like I have more clarity, more alertness, less bonking midday, and it's just been an unbelievable day. And I always feel like this is the test, right? How do I feel when we're out here doing watching the race and then putting out 4 shows a day? It's like probably the biggest grind I have all year. So this is the test. Now, having been on Ketones IQ for a few months, I can definitely tell a difference. I can look back at the last 6 Tours de France that we've covered from here, and I feel better than ever. So take it from me. Give it a 2-3 month try. All right. And you'll see a difference. I promise you, probably sooner than that, actually. So you can save 30% off your first subscription order of Ketone IQ at hvmn.com/the move. Again, to get that 30% off on the subscription, hvmn.com/the move, and subscribe upon checkout for 30% off. Okay, Johan, let's jump right in and talk about this sprint finish. There 2 really positive things happening, in my opinion. We got Jasper Philipsen getting his a 3rd win in this tour, which is a big story. And then the other big story that everyone's so wrapped up and engaged in is Mark Cavendish. Will he break the Tour wins record? Very close today, but had a gear skipping issue, which you could probably elaborate on. So we'll start with Jasper Philipsen and just his pure speed and his great lead out.
Yeah, I mean, today was clear it was going to be a bunch sprint. We saw basically the whole stage except at the end where 2 other riders bridged across. But there was one rider from a French team away all the time by himself. I mean, I didn't see the beginning of the stage, but then I saw some images on social media, and apparently initially, there was 4 riders in the break, and 3 of them were called back by their team directors over the radio to the peloton. They got instructions to not go in the breakaway. So, people may think, well, that's strange. If a guy's away from the bunch, why do they call him back? But I think that most of the directors are worried about the toughness of this first week. Tomorrow is not an easy stage either. And so knowing that everybody knew the outcome of today's stage. So we had this one courageous guy who went on, and finally, he then got caught by these two other French guys. It was a day for the French riders, right? To go in breakaways, but we got to the last 20 kilometers, and the speed picked up, and incredibly fast. Very nervous.
Don't you have some numbers on the speed in that last?
I saw the stats. The last 20 kilometers of today's stage were averaged at 58.8 kilometers per hour, so 59 kilometers per hour for the last 20 kilometers. That's incredibly fast, and that's like riding in a pack all across the road. It's mind blowing, actually, how fast they're going.
That is fast.
But we got to the city of Bordeaux. There was a little change in the UCI changed the rule for today. They made the cutoff point, instead of the 3 kilometers, the 3.6 kilometers, because there was some kind of dangerous or some technical passage, and apparently that was a fly. Apparently the riders union asked to change it, and finally they agreed. So yeah.
How does that go down? Like, one director's looking at it, riders are looking at it, you call another team, hey, we need to bring this to their attention. Is that likely how that would go down?
It's pressure, listen, at the end of the day, those UCI commissaires, they don't care. They just want to apply the rules, right? And it's 3 kilometers and it's 3 kilometers. But apparently there was enough concern and enough pressure, and so at least they changed it, which was good. But from there on, it was the bunch together, and we saw once again an Alpecin team really, really in full force. They had 5 riders in the last 2 kilometers. They had what's his name, Søren Kragh Andersen. They had Ramon Sinkeldam, and then they had the tall guy, the Belgian guy, Jonas Rickaert, and finally Mathieu van der Poel. Van der Poel did an amazing lead out. Maybe a little too early that he had to peel off, but he already got to the front with 500 to go. So at those speeds, it's incredibly difficult to do a lead out of 300 meters. So there you could see already, as soon as Van der Poel ran out of gas, you could see that almost guaranteed Philipsen was going to win, because he had still he was so lucid, he was so alert that he could still take look around, slow down a little, or not go straight away, and just wait until somebody else came, then surf that wheel, and then basically past the guy with 100 meters to go. So I think he's shown, Philipsen is showing that he is by far the fastest rider. 7 stages, 3 victories, every single stage that finished in a bunch sprint was for him. And on top of that, if you take into account last year's Tour de France, the last 5 bunch sprints in the Tour, so 3 of this year, and the last 2 bunch sprints of last year's Tour were won by him. So the last 5 bunch sprints in the Tour were won by Jasper Philipsen. So he is definitely confirming himself as being the sprinter of reference. He has developed as a rider. He's now also going to go for the green jersey. By the way, look, that color, JB, they changed the color of the green jersey this year.
Yeah,
I don't like it. I really don't like it.
Yeah, we were talking about that here, and it blends with a lot of the other jerseys, whereas
it doesn't stick out. It's very similar to Bora. It's very similar to Astana this year. Look, Cavendish is next to him there. So
yeah, it was always easy to spot that bright green jersey in with the aerial view.
Yeah. Well, anyways, he wants to get the green jersey. He's solidly in the lead, but it's only 7 stages. A lot of things can happen. But yeah, sprinting wise and speed wise, he is the strongest, no doubt about that. Today's victory was actually very dominant. His first 2 victories were there was some kind of doubt against Caleb Ewan. There was it was close, but and then the first stage win, and he did it. There was some doubt about some maneuver that he did, and today, there was not a lot of talks about it, but I personally think that, I don't think there was a reason for a concern, because he didn't put anybody in danger. But if you look at the sequences of what happened in the sprint, you can clearly see that first he's behind Van der Poel, who starts his lead out. He's in the middle of the road. Then Van der Poel goes bit by bit to the left side of the road. Philipsen follows, and as soon as Van der Poel is done, he goes to the middle of the road again, and then he finally goes to all the way to the right of the road. You can see this in these different pictures. And so at first, I didn't really see something dangerous when you look at the sprint in real time. But afterwards, when you go and analyze the different sequences, I think it's a clear change of trajectory. Now, he didn't endanger anybody. But if you would say, okay, depending on what the judges have done in the past and relegated people, this is a clear case of relegation, because, and I think that, and I want Philipsen to win. I don't think he didn't do anything dangerous, but it's just about finding consistency in the decisions of the judges. Other people have been disqualified for a lot less.
Yeah, my gut told me that he might get relegated, even if it was questionable. But looking at the incident earlier in the week, just trying to send him a message so it doesn't continue.
Yeah,
but George and Lance were like, no, it was good. It was good. He was ahead of Guilherme.
That's true. That's true. But I think at some point, there has to be, because it's always so subjective. Those decisions. Well, he didn't endanger anybody, so it's fine. I think at some point there has to be a system where the judges can apply consistently their decisions in sprints. There's always things that are going to happen, and I think so. I've thought about this. I've spoken about it on La Movida, on our Spanish podcast. How difficult would it be, JB? Well, first of all, there would have to be a standard that the last 400 meters, 300 meters always have to be in a straight. Whenever it's possible that there's a bunch sprint. So I think that should be a standard. Otherwise, you just have to change the finish line as an organizer. So 300-400 meters straight, and just draw lines on the, like make lanes. Sprint
that's what was coming to mind to me, because then you have a unit of measurement for a visual of how far they're drifting.
In my opinion, it depends where you are on the lane, but I think if it's, let's say if it's an 8 meter wide road, well, you have whatever, you have four or five lanes of 1.5 meter, right? Mm-hmm. And the standard should be that you are allowed to go from one to another, but not two, because you could be on the verge of one, and then you there's going to be movements, but I think it should be, it's not that difficult. And of course things are going to happen, but I think then riders also would have to get used to that kind of sprinting. Right.
I see what you mean by it's so subjective, because no one's taken a measurement of how far they drifted right or left.
Exactly.
This makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, but listen, with that system, Philipsen is relegated today, no doubt. He goes from middle to the left and to the right, like the two extremes. And I think it would take some time for sprinters to adapt, but after some time they would definitely know, okay, this is, once you go full speed ahead, that's it. You can go from one lane to the other, but not to the third lane.
And you probably saw earlier in the week, after the first incident, which they did not relegate him, Jakobsen was doing a post-race interview and was, vocal about it. He's like, this is where a team's mindset go, or a rider's mind. He said we should be, we should maybe start doing that. Then this whole problem just gets out of control, because if they're not relegating him, then maybe I should start doing that if I'm, get a jump in a sprint.
Yeah. I mean, listen, at the end, in today's stage, the fastest sprinter won, and Cavendish was second. I mean, he did not bring it up, but I do know that there was some kind of, apparently you can't protest anymore now. The rules don't admit that you file a protest. But apparently the manager of Intermarché, because it was basically Girmay. If you look at those pictures, it's Girmay who is hindered by the coming from the left to the right of Philipsen. And so they were once again in that truck where they reviewed the images. And apparently Vinokurov also went in there. Cavendish hasn't been bothered by Philipsen. It was Girmay who was bothered by Philipsen, but
wait, I was so hung up in the Cavendish story of his chain jumping that where did he finish?
Second.
So he did finish second. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense why Vinokurov would go if he's relegated.
Of course.
Not the way Cavendish wants to get the record, though. You don't want to get it that way, but
no. But
now that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, Philipsen super fast. He won 3 stages. It's not his last stage he's going to win in this tour, bearing accident or illness. And Cav, it was impressive to see him come from really quite far behind, because the moment Van der Poel is pulling off and stops his lead out, if you have the overhead shot, Cavendish is not even anywhere to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Ewan and Groenewegen and Girmay, they're all there, and Cavendish all of a sudden comes. I mean, he has the speed. Today we saw that he has the speed to win another stage.
Yeah, that was the encouraging takeaway. And 3 more chances. Does that sound correct for Cavendish?
Yeah, in theory 4, but I think tomorrow would be difficult. Tomorrow there's going to be a lot of other riders who are not sprinters who want to win this stage, and it's it's a hard finish, so it's probably not gonna be able to sprint for the victory tomorrow.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you could clearly see when he started his sprint. First, I thought that was like a bump in the road or something, and you could see that he was standing, and then he sat down, and then he stood up again. But then afterwards, we heard in his interview that his sprockets were skipping. He was on the 11, and then he went to the 12, then it went back to the 11 and back to the 12. And so, if you think back about 30K before the finish, he had a wheel change. He had a problem with his back wheel, and he had a wheel change. So it's probably, I mean, even if it's completely fit for that frame and that chain, it's not the same as if a mechanic fixes the wheel on the bike on the stand, before
when runs through the gears.
The fine tuning is different.
That's interesting, because I've noticed you see more complete bike changes than wheel changes, because it takes longer with the newer wheels.
Yeah, I think maybe a bike change would have been a good solution. He would have spent less energy to come back, because it took a while. It took a while before he came back. I mean, obviously he didn't have to pull; his teammates did the work, but still. So yeah, I mean, he's very, very disappointed apparently. I mean, imagine JB. He's there. He was far behind, and he knew that he could surf the wheels and find his way through the front of the group. And then finally, you see that line there, and you see this open road, and you go and you pass everybody. Imagine the adrenaline that went on in his, he said, I'm going to do this. And then, of course, then Philipsen shows that he's in another league. So I think he's disappointed to be second, but he's also disappointed that in his mind, he hasn't been able to go full gas, like let all his watts out in that sprint. So yeah, bummer, but yeah, he's there. It is possible. It is possible.
I know.
6th, 5th, 2nd.
Well, and I hate to get ahead of everything, but if it doesn't happen, I'll be the first to say, don't retire. You're still fast.
Yeah,
he's come back. I know. He's already announced his retirement end of season.
JB, no matter what happens, let's not forget this, right? He does have the record.
Right. It's just a
right. He does have the record.
Right.
It's not like he does. I mean, everybody said, yeah, he's going to beat Eddie Merckx's record. He shares the record with Eddie Merckx. It's not like,
Oh, and yeah, I know you can't. That man cannot retire with any complaints if this doesn't happen. Like, what an amazing athlete! What an amazing career! It's one of the best.
And it could not be any. I mean, Philipsen wins. Cavendish second today. Yesterday we spoke about this. He won in Bordeaux 13 years ago, and we checked. Jasper Philipsen was 10 years old. Yesterday we said 11, 10 years old.
Yeah.
When Cav won his stage in Bordeaux. So
speaking of 10 years old, if you watched the Giro, you saw a young American, Matthew Riccatello. He's here. He's here.
I heard.
I saw him in person.
So I mean, isn't it crazy?
Yeah, you look at him face to face.
Yeah, it's a teenager.
I'm like, how is this? And he's a machine, and we're going to see a lot more of him. But you're like, this is a World Tour rider. Like, he just looks so young, and he had a great Giro, by the way. If you didn't watch, I know a lot of our audience maybe only does the Tour. Rising star, but he just looks so young. It made me feel so old.
He did an amazing climb in that last time trial. He was one of the fastest. I think top 3 fastest.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I've seen on social media that he's over there. So yeah, he does look really young, right?
Yeah, nice kid. I can't wait to see more from him. Okay, now Johan, let's. I think that's everything from today. Unless you had something else, but we'll go ahead and talk about tomorrow. And Lance shared on the show. That's where that finish is, where he finished in 95.
In Limoges,
Yeah, and it was, that unfortunate year where Fabio Costatelli passed, and then he was the famous images of him pointing to the sky when he won that.
Yes.
And he's told me to ask you, he said, I think Johan was in that break.
Yeah, we were together in the break, yeah.
That's so wild. I know you and Lance aren't that far apart in age. I have to remind myself. You're just a lot more mature.
I am 9 years older than him, so he was still very, very young. But actually, was that it was 95. So and that's I had won a stage already. That famous stage in Liège where I dropped him, and then a few days later we were together in the breakaway, and yeah, he just, I do remember though, he went, it was quite I think it was about 20 people or 15 plus people. And it was hard. It's a hard terrain. And I still remember him attacking. It was still far. It was still 50K to go.
I think Indurain was in that break too.
No.
Okay.
No. But I still remember him attacking. I said, what the hell is this kid thinking? So far. And he later shared with me that once he was gone, he said he knew that it was over. That he was so in the zone of having to win that stage in honor of his teammate. And I shared the story with him when we spoke about that many years ago, because I had a similar experience. The first ever stage I won in the Tour was in 93. And it was a breakaway with some strong guys, and I attacked with 20K to go on my own. And I had the same experience. You know, my dad had passed away like four weeks before the tour.
Oh man.
And I knew I needed to win a stage in his honor. And I do remember exactly the same thing. When I got away and I had 15 meters, I looked back, I said, okay, this is it. Full gas to the finish. See you in the douches.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That mind, the power,
Oh yeah.
like it's like you were two men riding that day.
Oh yeah, no, I was in a zone. I was in another state. I mean, that particular stage back then was, you know, 49.7 kilometers average. It was the fastest stage in history of the tour back then when I won it. And you know, I did something that physically I would never have thought it was possible.
Wow.
Lance had that same experience when he went with a lot of kilometers to go to Limoges.
Yeah, we watched the clip before the show from 95, and even Lance goes, holy shit, I was flying. You know, it's a cool thing to look up on
Yeah.
YouTube if you've got time to do that. It's well worth watching. But I know you guys raced at the same time, but it's still cool to hear those stories. You know, I love it. I love it. So let's talk about what you expect tomorrow. You obviously know this.
Well, tomorrow
run-in.
it's a hard final. There's three categorized climbs, but if you look at the profile, you know, you can see that the last part of the stage, it's up and down, and those roads in the Limousin, which is the area around Limoges, are so hard. You know, there's a race called the Tour de Limousin, and there's no real big climbs, but it is so hard. It's all the time. There's no flat at all. So going to be difficult to keep it together. Bunch sprint is, if it's a bunch sprint, it's going to be a reduced bunch sprint, and that would maybe be because something, you know, there's a team represented in the bunch with a sprinter, and most of the sprinters are dropped, and then it can still come back. But I think tomorrow could be a really good day for a breakaway. I think you know, we haven't seen a breakaway make it to the finish yet, right?
Right.
No, I mean, you can't say. I mean, yeah, Victor Lafay, that's not a breakaway. So yeah, I think tomorrow we're going to see the first breakaway. So I still need to check a little bit who's you know, who could be a candidate, but it's a difficult one to predict tomorrow because easy stage today, pretty easy start of the stage tomorrow, so accessible to a lot of people. That's actually also one of the reasons why those guys who got called back in today's stage at the beginning of the stage, they're going to say, hey, no, today no, because we know you can't make it tomorrow. You go in the break, you know?
Yeah. Okay. And I even mentioned this on the move. I like, this is the kind of day where if you're a season pass member and you're getting the feed of outcomes the day before, you and Spencer you start throwing out names of potential candidates, which I'm sure you'll go do a bunch of research.
Yeah, it's still a bit. I mean, you know, the thing is, we haven't seen that much because it's still a bit early. You know, it's 7 days, so we had 3 bunch sprints. So obviously, you can't identify any potential stage hunters. And we had 2 mountain stages, and then the first 2 stages were like middle mountain stages. So it's difficult, but we'll check now and throw out some names.
Okay. All right. We got to do this here real quick. I shouldn't say we get to do this and potentially give away a Ventum NS1 road bike with the trivia. Every day you can answer the question. You can look it up, take your time, get the right information, email your answer in, and daily from the people with the correct answer, they draw a winner. And at the end of the tour, they're going to draw from those and give away a complete bike, an NS1. Okay. Yesterday's question or answer, the question and answer was, what famous sports announcer was in Lance Armstrong's This Is Sports Center commercial? That answer, hope you got it right yesterday, was Dan Patrick. And Johan, this is a tough one for the average tour fan, but you might know it offhand. Don't answer it now. Is What is the longest stage ever recorded in the history of the Tour de France? The longest stage ever.
I need to
You'd
look
have
it
to
up.
look that up. Okay. Yeah, we mentioned
It's long. I know it's very long.
you're going to be shocked probably when you look it up at how long it is. Yeah. So feel free to go research that answer and send it in via email to trivia@ventumracing.com. All right. Good luck. A couple questions for you, Johan, on this lighter day. This one comes from Tim. He says, not taking anything away from Pogačar, but I remember the 2020 Tour de France when Jumbo did all the work for Roglic and basically towed Pogačar all over France until he snatched the win on the last day. Stage 6 looked like a version of the same thing. Pogačar's team was gone, but Jumbo just let him sit on until the end, doing no work until he jumped at the end. Jumbo can't let this be a repeat of 2020, can it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's from Tim.
You know, that's the way it looks yesterday, but you know, it's a bit. Jumbo had a plan yesterday, right? And it turned out the plan didn't work, but the intention behind it made some sense. They basically wanted to take advantage of the fact that I think, first of all, they were surprised that Pogačar wasn't able to follow Jonas Vingegaard in on the Marie Blanc, and that he was not on a level that they expected, you know. So that's, I think that they made that plan after stage 5 for sure. And yeah, I mean, what they should have done, we've talked about it yesterday, what they should have done is, okay, they have a plan, they try, but when on the Tourmalet they see that Jonas couldn't drop today Pogačar, then you have to change that plan. It's as simple as that. You know, I mean, if he couldn't drop him on the Tourmalet, he would for sure not drop him on the last climb, because it was not a steep, it's not an altitude. The way Pogačar looked on the Tourmalet, the way he could respond, and what I think personally is also, I mean, you know, Vingegaard was going really, really fast on the Tourmalet, like really fast. So he must have known, hey, I can't go much faster. So on that last climb, if it's better pavement, if it's not as steep, I'm not going to drop him. So I think that's the mistake they made. Yeah, because I afterwards I timed the time that Jonas was pulling at first when Sepp Kuss was gone on the Tourmalet, and then when Wout van Aert was gone on the last climb, and it was very similar. And in my opinion, on the contrary, Pogačar made his plan already on the last slopes of the Tourmalet. He said, okay, I'm fine. My legs are really better than yesterday. If this is his speed, I'm dropping that guy on the last climb. So yeah, I think they made a mistake. I think the plan made sense, but once once you start a strategy like that, it's sometimes difficult to get out of it, because they had Wout van Aert in the front, and once they caught Wout van Aert in the downhill of the Tourmalet, there was not much they could do. You know, nobody was going to work with them. And yeah, Van Aert, I mean, what they could have done, that would actually have been a better strategy, was in the downhill and in the valley towards the last climb, not put Van Aert full gas to absolutely catch those 4 other guys who were in the breakaway. You know, so if those guys can start that last climb with a more advantage, then there's a chance. At least that's, I mean, in a Grand Tour, you always have to be calculating what might come, right? So if Van Aert doesn't go full gas, they don't catch those 4 guys. There was, I mean, Kwiatkowski was in there. There was Johannesson was in there, the guy who got 3rd. So if they start that last climb with a minute and a half behind those guys, then they assure that the bonifications are gone. And at least that's 10 seconds that are gone, right? In the case, and you also know that Pogačar is not going to be as aggressive if there's not a stage win at stake. And initially, before the stage, I personally think that Pogačar, his intention, his goal was, okay, today I need to stay with Vingegaard. Can't lose time. He changed his plan. That's just what I'm thinking, right? But I don't think I'm far off. He changed his plan at the top of the Tourmalet. He says, okay, if this guy can't drop me here, I'm getting him on the last climb. If there's 4 riders up front, the bonifications are gone and there's not a stage win at stake. So the incentive is not as...
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I think on the Tourmalet, we saw Jonas out of the saddle more than usual, right? And that would have been a light bulb for Pogačar to go, he doesn't get out of the saddle very often. So I know he's full gas and I feel fine.
These guys know each other.
Yeah.
Indeed. They're studying each other. And I mean, on the Tourmalet, maybe not so much, but when on the last climb, when Van Aert pulled off and Jonas went, he had his usual acceleration standing up. There you could clearly see that Pogačar was a little bit better because he didn't even have to get out of the saddle. He was just like straight away on the wheel. So yeah, I mean, they're not stupid at Jumbo-Visma. I hope they've learned their lesson.
All right, and one more question here. Eric writes, a few stage recaps ago, Johan mentioned that this was the first year a certain French team was doing altitude camps, and perhaps they did it wrong. Can you share with us what the experience of altitude camp is like, and how would a team go about doing it right or wrong? That's from Eric in Mill Creek, Washington.
Well, that's true. I think I said that probably after the Dauphiné. I think I'm talking about Groupama FDG. They had riders in the past doing altitude camps, but I think as a team they had never done it before. And it's really difficult to get it right, because different riders react differently to altitude. In this case, for example, David Gaudu, who was 4th in last year's Tour de France, who is the leader of Groupama FDG, he looks like he reacted not really well to altitude, because in Dauphiné he was not the David Gaudu that normally would be going for a podium place in the Tour de France. So I think they need a few years of experience to know how it works and how everybody reacts. I've seen the same thing for another guy, and that was earlier in the year. The Dutch guy Tijmen Arendsman, who's now is his first year on Ineos. They did an altitude camp before the Giro and before Tour of the Alps, and you could see that Arendsman had not recovered from the altitude camp. In Tour of the Alps, he was not good, like really not good. And then he had 2 weeks in between, and then he did the Giro, and he was amazingly strong in the Giro, amazingly strong.
No, that's interesting. You think some of these things are so simple. Just go to altitude and ride your bike.
No,
it's just not that simple. No. And the timing of when to do it.
It's very, very different. This is also one of the disadvantages that Pogačar has compared to Jonas Vingegaard, is that Vingegaard has this traditional build-up towards the Tour stage races. He's not done one day race. So stage races, altitude, stage races, altitude. So he went minimum three times to altitude. Pogačar only did it once, because first he had this classics campaign, and then he only went to altitude while he was still recovering from his wrist. So that's also not ideal.
So he can get some benefit while he's not.
Yeah. But definitely not the ideal. So that's something to consider. It could be, and all of this is theory, JB. It's sometimes the human body reacts in ways that you can't explain. Sometimes you can be training and going really on schedule and doing everything you need and everything you can, and then your objective comes and you're nowhere.
And it's different you just said, I'm repeating it. It's different for every rider. Like,
who is sometimes sometimes you have guys who really, really focus and they do everything right. And when the objective comes, it's not there. And then they kind of decompress. And 2 weeks later, they're flying, like flying, you know? So it's, it's not math. It's not pure math.
No, I was remembering how I think it was De Ghent who you said doesn't do massages. It was somebody like it's different for every rider. Like that, you're just like can't get your brain around that. No massages.
That's a bit extreme. That's a bit extreme. I mean, I don't know him personally, Thomas De Ghent, but you know, going off of his interviews and his opinions and what he publishes on social media, I think it's a very, very special guy. Yeah.
All right. On that note, we'll wrap it up. I know you've got to go do outcomes. I'm really looking forward to it because it's just one of those wild card kind of days. So I'd definitely be checking out outcomes. And if you want to email into this show anything specific for Johan, all right, send it to JB Squared, JB2@wedo.team. All right. Thanks, Johan. I appreciate it.
Thanks, JB. Speak tomorrow. Tomorrow I am in a different look. Tomorrow I'm in Belgium. So tomorrow will be, I mean, I'm still going to have my background of the race. So, but tomorrow I'm coming from Belgium. And
happy birthday to your mother.
Yes. Thank you. 80 years old. So that's the reason why I'm going.
Nice.
We go to celebrate her 80th birthday. Yeah.
Good deal. All right. We'll talk tomorrow.
Thanks, JB.